Welcome, my friends, diving into Rave Cosmology 4 from jovianarchive.com, the source of the human design system. This is the first class free of the 2027 semester. That semester actually has 11 classes in it. So this first class, Ra says that we're going to look at this whole process of 2027 and what it is going to bring relative to the entire class. So if you're interested, or course, if you're interested in the 2027 shifts, the times that we're in, it's a good idea to either get Ra's material, listen, or if you want to engage in the material at a deeper level with being a Rave Cosmology teacher, or just with your fellow students, I warmly invite you to connect up with us who are doing this work. So we're going to look at a very detailed description of the Rave in this semester to prepare you for what's ahead. Rave being the new creature that is going to be birthed out of our current physiological form. Ra calls us human beings in transitus. And so the consequences of what that shift is going to bring us, this time, this new era that we're in, and discuss relative to the mechanics of human design, how this affects humanity, its cosmology, after all, how we are connected up with the cosmos, and to be able to see what this is all going to bring to us. So in the nature and mechanics of the Rave 2027 course content, you're going to find the Plutonic Interregnum. This is the class that you're going to get today. And then the transitional body graph, as well as the Solar Plexus mutation, stages 1 and 2, the Solar Plexus mutation, stages 3 and 4, and the design of Raves, or in other words, talking about the autive circuit. The design of Raves and talking about their experiential and collective circuits, as well as their material and binary circuits. The design of Raves, the individual circuit, and the conscious Penta, as well as Penta personalities and finding the bridge. Now, if you don't know this word Penta, basically what a Penta is the transauric entity, the energetic frequency of what controls human beings when they are in a group of 3 to 5 people. So relative to the new babies that are going to be born after this 2027 mutation takes hold in 2027, surprise, surprise, they are going to be able to operate functionally in a conscious Penta. We current human beings, Homo sapiens and transitus, actually operate in Pentas unconsciously. We are not conscious of what the Penta controls us or dictates to us what we're supposed to do. But if you are a human being who isn't as unfamiliar with human design, if you started to study and you know yourself, you know how different you become in a small group. I know with a small group channel, I become different in a small group. When you're in a small group and you don't have a small group channel, you can feel like people, maybe constricting or restricting you from being your fullest nature, authentic self. Or maybe it's like, I can't be myself with those people, or I don't like who I am with that group, that kind of thing. That's what we're going to be talking about, the mechanics of such in this course. So those of you who are already in BG5, many of you in this class I know already are, or if you're studying family practice, it's not going to be unfamiliar to you. But if you're not in those 2 classes, then you're going to learn a whole lot about transauric forms and particularly with respect to the new type of human being that is going to be birthed out of this kind of body that we all inhabit and live in right now. Okay, so that's a big picture overview of our course. Now we're going to talk about the Plutonic Interregnum, the very first step of understanding Pluto and the magic and influence of what Pluto happens to bring to you, happens to offer to you. Pluto in 1781 was in gate 41. And I actually went and grabbed my trusty ephemeris. You can see here, the Human Design System ephemeris from 2021 to 2050. And there's no pages in here, but it is listed at the top by the day on the side here, the month and the year And if we look to April 2024, we look over to the very far right column where the sign of Pluto is, we can see gate 41, line 1 right there. And so this year, in just a few months, we are going to have the first effects of Pluto entering into the start codon in our genetics. So to begin somewhere, we're going to talk about 1781 as a brief review for those of you who have already studied the foundations of human design. To enter into any of the Rave Cosmology courses, you must have at least finished Rave Cartography, okay? Living Your Design, ABC, and then Cartography. And then you'll be able to keep up with us in this course relative to terms and concepts, language. It's almost like learning a new language when you're studying human design, particularly if you're going into the professional level. You can take this course whether or not you want to become a professional, though. You don't have to become a Rave Cosmology teacher to enjoy this course. If you're somebody who likes history or the mechanics of how the world works, you know, how does everything work? How do I work? What's my relationship with cosmological forces? That's where to come, is to the Rave Cosmology classes and courses. So on the left-hand side here, you're going to see a graphic representation of a 7-chakrad human being. That is the body of Buddha, if you will, the Hindu Brahmin chakra system. You can recognize if you've been into the Eastern Indian, dots, not feathers, culture, yoga, meditation, you know, Vedic astrology, Ayurveda, so many different wonderful things come out of that culture. So relative to our era, in 1781, we had a shift. And that shift was this 9-centered human being. On this right side of my slide, you can see the Rave body graph. The colors are reversed for this particular course. I'm not sure why Ra did that, probably to have something different, something interesting, you know, just reversing the images so that we can get a different feel or flavor for things, something new to look at. And we're looking at something that before Ra put pen to paper and drew it out had never been seen before. The way that the mandala wheel is structured with the hexagrams, with the Chinese I Ching chops, with the Judaic Kabbalah, with the Hindu Brahmin chakra system influence, with our genetic codes from our ancient exoteric and modern esoteric, so observational sciences, basically. This is a synthetic synthesis of all of the different great traditions of understanding ourselves as human beings. So we're looking at an evolutionary transitional form, you and I, people who were born after 1781. Before 1781, there were no projector types. There weren't even types. We have a new way of languaging things thanks to Ra and his work in extrapolating out his mystical experience to express the unique synthesis of what the human design system has to offer us. So a lot of the material that I'm going to be referencing again is in Rave Cosmology, Semester 4, The Nature and Mechanics of the Rave. If you want to go and self-study, he's got audio courses. And what we have is a mentorship between myself and you if you want to know how this affects you personally, or you and another teacher, because I'm not the only teacher out there. There's tons of teachers that you might resonate more to. So when we look on this slide, deeply, deeply mutative about what it is to be in this family we call Homo, Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalis, Homo sapiens. So probably 4 million years to Africanus. When did you ever watch the movie Lucy? Freaking love that show. Okay, so in the movie, Lucy, the character in the show, goes back in time and actually touches the Lucy, that the famous Lucy find, these 3.5-foot creatures that were the first of our kind to be able to walk erect. So you can see we're dealing with vast swaths of time relative to this particular area before we get to 1781. And the seven-centered human creature, as we see here on this body graph, you see we began as 3, we shifted into the 5, and then we shifted into the 7. The seven-centered creature was what we were from 1781 and 90,000 years before. So that was the time that it took to develop our self-reflective consciousness, the ajna and head center relative to this current human being, the language of how we identify with it. Ajna being about our conceptualization process, head being about our inspiration function. So Ra says something to realize that is that there has been this movement over and over again. The seven-centered was once 5, the 5 was once 3. It's one of those progressions that are just there. So now, just a real brief note here. This 5-centered graph that you're seeing on my screen here, this is the design of a dream rave. And when Ra was given this knowledge, he was given the design of forms, but he called it human design because it was way more practical. Ra being a very practical man, wanting to get it out to the world. What can this material do for you? Self-realization, self-actualization, enlightenment in the modern sense, not in the seven-centered sense, which we'll discuss in our courses. But this 5-centered body graph that you're looking at contains the same centers as when we were 5, but relative to it's a dream rave analysis that you want to go look at if you want to understand your dream design. And your dream design is one of the deepest layers of conditioning you are exposed to every day, every time you sleep, every time you are engaged with that kind of restful, even like twilight sleep. You're still getting that programming feed. So I mention this because this is one of those things. I'm going to show you a little bit about primary health system in a few moments here and tell you that it's so critical that you operate in alignment as well as take care of your body the way that it's designed to be treated. You go find a primary health system practitioner or a differentiation degree program graduate like myself or a variable teacher, anybody who can help you make sure that you're treating your body correctly. Please enter into that according with your decision-making strategy, your strategy and authority. Because what that's going to do with the primary health system is help you to mitigate some of the deepest challenges that you are faced with or forced to grapple with when you wake up every freaking morning. Primary health system helps you with some of that challenges that you're having to following your decision-making strategy. I was once, I don't want to go too deep into that because I don't want to go too long, but there is a highly trained professional out there who is not human design certified, but trained, very, very studious, very smart. And he said, but actually, there's not a lot of people who are able to follow their strategy and authority. And yeah, because they don't know how to treat their body. The body is the life. The body is what is experiencing this life, and the personality mind construct is just observing the life. And so when you wake up in the morning, you have all of this bleed through effect from the dream rave. So I highly recommend that you check that aspect out. If you're at this level of the knowledge where you've taken rave cartography, check out dream rave, check out primary health system when it's right for you, because it's going to help you a lot with your deconditioning process. Okay. Now, Homo sapiens. So here we're looking at a 7-centered construct, right? 7 chakras to be precise, because you see all of the symbols of the Hindu Brahmin chakra system there. So everything that we have in this life to praise ourselves for, the technologies, the sophistications, our medicines, sewer systems, glory that you want to claim, all of that was built on the backs of the Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens. For 90,000 years, we developed our self-reflective consciousness, ajna and head. So now this movement of energy, you can see this interweaving back and forth between the centers up to the head center. That is the way that the energy moved back then, okay? Now we are in a very different kind of construct. Our human creatures in this time and era, as you might have recalled, Ross called us Homo sapiens in transitus, because we are in a transitional form. So we don't have the fully developed solar plexus or emotional intelligence function as an awareness function. Right now, it is dominated by its motor function. There's a lot of energy, a lot of power, a lot of force moving through that developing spirit consciousness, because it's currently being mutated. We, as human creatures, being mutated by the current background frequency, the program that we happen to be subject to, okay, transits, in other words. So the nine-centered human being structure, that structure doesn't change. You were born with a genetic imprint, you die with that same genetic imprint. But what happens between those two times, those moments in time and space, is a part of our developmental process for whatever this life happens to be for us, whether that be days or whether that be decades or even a century. So relative to the perfectedness of this form, it is still gestating. Over on the left-hand side, you see the Homo sapiens singularity, energy moving up to the crown chakra, you know, like that blossoming of the flower, the 10,000 petal lotus at the top of the head. You know, it's a very different process that we are currently engaged in. And yet, in today's day and age, people are still stuck in the homogenized construct of what the seven-centered human, Homo sapiens, had to offer us. So the essence of this singularity of what the Homo sapiens had, they had seven-centered religions, which we still to this day practice. They had the morality of right, wrong, good, bad, justifications of this or that, finding oneness through unity with the cosmic beyond outside of the body. So die, and now you get your rewards in the afterlife. I mean, come on. No, I want my rewards in this life, this form, this vehicle, this body. And you can see it all around us relative to what our societal structures are looking towards. Strategic in nature, meaning the biology of a seven-centered human being had way more of its focus on the tangible reality, what you could see, what you could smell, and what you could taste. Okay, so very strategic. What would bring security? What would bring the ability to take action or to be able to discern, be so picky or selective about this or that uncertainty being part of the principle. So Homo sapiens, energy moving up, okay? Seven-centered, yeah, that Kundalini energy, the snake rising from the root chakra all the way up to the head center. That's not us anymore. And yet still, to this day, people practice things to try and get the energy to move up to the head. And I'm sorry, but you're 400 years too late. We're in a new vehicle now. So everything about the seven-centered was to develop self-reflected consciousness. Yeah, Ajna, conceptualization, head, inspiration. Now, 1781, we're looking at a nine-centered human being, Homo sapiens in transitus. As far as Ra could tell, in 1781, there were no more births of the seven-centered human. And of course, everybody who was born before that dying out after that time frame. So calling us Homo sapiens in transitus because we are not Homo sapiens. And yet we are not the full-blown rave. That's why, you know, it's the rave mandala, the rave body graph, the rave return, the rave, it's rave, 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 rave. What's a rave? A rave is a fully developed nine-centered human being. We are not that because we have not been born after 2027. Okay, so we are no longer strictly human in the way that humans for 90,000 years thought of themselves as being human. We are something in between, neither this nor that. We are a transitional form. And in this form, this is the time, this is the era where you have the ability to be self-empowered and awakened to your individuality. And you can only do that if you let go of your mind running the show, telling you what to do, because the transits are always being reflected within your mind, the people that you're with. Okay, so relative to the evolution of humanity, this is a transitional force that we're dealing with, a time in our lives where it's no longer about the strategic seven-centered religions, the morality of right and wrong, the good and bad, or finding oneness. This is about you and your sovereign nature, trusting yourself for your decision-making process. A great time to break away from the illusion of Maya, which lives in the mind. Each one of us, Maya mechanics, those of you who are studying human design at whatever level. And Ra says, quote, to free ourselves, this is the greatest time to break away from the power of mind. He says to free ourselves, not simply from what we describe on the surface as the not self and the way the not self works, but we have to free ourselves from being nothing more than poor copies of a much different form, because it's not any more about mind. It can't be, end quote. This particular form is designed to have its own individuality, the door to inner truth, opened by Pluto recently, and that door to inner truth closing as the new cycle or the new era shifts over into a new background frequency with different keys. So this Homo sapien in transitus that we are, not really human. I like that. I like that. You know, I'm a little different, a little wacky, a little weird, if you haven't noticed. This is the transitional field. This body graph, this structure never changes. And yet, I mean, with the thing that you were born with, and yet, there's a couple things happening in one's life. You have cycles every single year. You have transits. You have larger life cycles like Saturn and Uranus opposition and Chiron and your second Saturn. And you also have lunar cycles. I mean, there's all kinds of cycles. So the only thing that you can trust is the thing that remains reliably consistent about you throughout your entire life. And that is your decision-making strategy, the energetic nature of your inherent truth or sense of being, whatever that happens to be for you, what you can trust inside of your own uniqueness, your own nature. So this system offers us something that has never been seen before. It gives us the ability to awaken, to be correct, by being in touch, in tune with our own unique, differentiated form. This is form knowledge, this human design system. It's about the mechanics of the Maya, and yet what it really serves to support is the form. So in the relational dynamic between you and your own experiment, nobody but you knows relative to, am I following my design? Am I living my design or not? There doesn't have to be any question once you get through the hump of letting go of the mind and sourcing into the body, because the body takes over, which is a really cool thing. The body starts to do what it came here to do. The body comes with this developmental knowing inside of what is right for it. And it is our mind inside the head about the self. I call it the thought you think that makes you shrink inside, because it rhymes and it's easier to remember, but it really, literally does happen. I'm not good enough. Nobody loves me was my mantra as a child. On the outside, bright, happy smile. On the inside, yeah, not particularly healthy. So you look at this body graph. Did you notice it was Ra's graph in the middle? It's kind of hard with the what do you call that, Katja, when it's like reversed, the reversed imagery? You can see how she's pulled out the personality construct and the design construct on either side so that you can see the personality is an imprint of your psychological nature, and the design, the form imprint, is your physiological nature. Okay, so we are a binary consciousness. These two things brought together, 1 + 1 equals a third thing, not two, in human design. Just like when you're in a relationship with someone, you plus another person You know the thing that the two of you become. You do not know each other. You never know your partner. You only know the thing that the two of you become. You never know just your personality or just your design. You only know the quantum of the two, the expressive duality of what your nature is relative to this life and this being. Opening up the doorway to duality, the true binary of what this Homo sapien in transitus is this dualistic construct or nature where we can develop self-reflected consciousness, observing the mind, witnessing the body, and we can also align to the inherent truth of our nature, the form, our physical reality. So that was a good introduction. Now we're going to shift into the Plutonian Interregnum. This is, quote, every day we move closer to 2027. There are changes that are taking place in the very form that we operate in. And there is a mechanism for that. And that mechanism is Pluto, unquote. So you can see the Plutonian Interregnum relative to this time when Pluto was discovered. And when Ra recorded this was 2006. We're still in it. Yeah, we're about to get to that place where it's going to be over because it'll be a new cycle, as I showed you earlier in our ephemeris. So here's our solar system. Yeah, sun creating most of the neutrino stream. The reason why human design and astrology work is because of the neutrino ocean that we're all living in. And in 1930, Pluto emerged into our consciousness. And we said, hey, there's more planets, more in the family. And it was celebrated. And Tombaugh, who discovered it over in Flagstaff, became a hero, the discoverer. Oh, he was in Flagstaff. He didn't discover it in Flagstaff. Dang it, I did it again. So there's a city near where I live. I live below it in Sedona, Arizona, just outside. And you can see up there that it's very high in elevation, 7,000 feet up in the air. I really like being up there. It feels immensely freeing and opening. Relative to our ability to see the stars, it depends on where you are. If you live in a city, if you ever get the chance to get out of a city, please do yourself a favor and look up at that night sky. Grab your Human Design bodygraph, mybodygraph.com or My Mechanics, and take a look at where the planets are and see if you can see the evening stars, you know, that move. That's what the ancients called them. These planets, the moving stars, the wandering stars, they are planetary imprints where the neutrino goes through the energetic substance, the physical form of that planet, and it imprints us with the nature of that planet. These are like the gods within, I like to call them, because they are representatives of an energy. And you can hear them talking to you, or you can feel them moving through you when they come through as transits. Really a trip. Okay, so in this solar system, we have inner planets. You can see them there. We have outer planets. Oops, I went too fast. Okay, there. You can see them there. And now let's go look at the dwarf planets, of which Pluto is one. So it's a dwarf planet in the Kuiper belt, a ring of bodies just beyond the orbit of Neptune. It's the 9th largest and the 10th most massive known object to directly orbit the sun. The largest known trans-Neptunian object by volume, by a small margin. But what's interesting, it's slightly less massive than Eris. Isn't that interesting? Because Eris, even on the slide, you can see it's a tiny bit bigger. And then there's Sedna. Okay, so Pluto we use inside of our body graph because that's how Ra laid out the system according to his experience. So in 1930, we had the discovery of Pluto. And in 2006, we talk about the demotion of Pluto because at that time, it didn't belong in the family of planets. It was thrown out. So much we could talk about there relative to astronomy. And one of the reasons why people might go, well, why don't you use Eris, or we do use Chiron, a planetary asteroid that actually in our body graph doesn't activate a gate, but creates not only our Chironian phase of our life, the full flowering of our human life experience, our fulfillment of purpose, our life's work. We call it incarnation crosses. But it doesn't create a gate activation. It does create a whole lot of havoc. It's your natal wound that you were born with. So Pluto, back to the story of the interregnum, Pluto, this particular program is about Pluto. And as you watch Pluto moving from the discovery in 53 all the way around the wheel to where it had its demotion in 2006, it's an instrument of a step-by-step mutational process. So Pluto is right about to get into 41 in April. Gate 41 is our start codon in our genetics. We have one start codon. We have 3 stop codons in our genetics. So it's something to see that Pluto turns something on as it moves through a gate, and it turns something off when it moves through a gate. And it is the demarcation for our new evolutionary cycle as we spiral through space and time as these human creatures. So when you turn on to genetics, it takes a long time for it to emerge. Children, they're born as little itsy bitsy teeny weeny babies. I love babies, can you tell? Children, you don't get to see what they're like when they're 50, when they're born. No, the imprint is there, but it's not the fullest flowering of their developmental human potential, because we as 9-centered creatures, guess what? 50 is the true age of maturation. 30 is the end of childhood. Between those two places, we have our Uranian opposition, Uranus opposition, and that people call midlife crisis. I like to call it something a little bit different in that it's a shift from childhood into adulting. It's my adulting phase. So you develop the skills and the abilities, the gifts that you have been given in order to fulfill your highest potential at 50 and beyond. So, that old construct of, well, I've got to know what I'm supposed to do by the time I'm 18. I need to go to college. I need to have all these jobs. And no, that's not what we're in. This Plutonian Interregnum is slowing down our maturity relative to this new cycle, this era that we're in, that we're closing. And it is not about being an adult at 18. It's actually 30 that you end childhood and start to let go of childish things. So it takes a lot of the pressure off, that pressure of, well, I remember my mom asking me, I was dating a guy who death brings it to mind. He died and left me an inheritance, and that's why I get a little triggered when I think about him. But when I started dating him, she said, well, doesn't he have a house yet? No, Mom. Well, what's wrong with him? You don't have to grow up by 30. Just saying that, okay? So you don't have to have this being a fully capable, got everything together by 30. 50. Most people think 50, you're like over the hill and it's retirement. No, this is your time. 50 is your time. You get to have your fullest flowering and unique potential now. And so what Ra says is that this mutative transition that is there, with every step, it opens up the possibility for the rave. And we're very close to those rave children in their fullest capacity to have a solar plexus that is not energized via the emotional wave, but that energy actually being turned off, and all we have is spirit consciousness. Very different kind of human creature, So what this Pluto has been doing is turning on rave genetics and turning off human genetics. Hi, baby. My little kitty's meowing at me. Okay, 1781, discovery of Uranus. You can see the 41st gate where Pluto is popped into now. This human experiential way is what we have been looking at relative to when Pluto began this process in 1781, and it was in the 41st gate. So think about it now. April, Pluto, 41st gate, new cycle, okay? The emergence of Uranus into our consciousness was the discovery of Uranus in 1781. Okay, so here's the discovery of Uranus as far as the imprint when it happened. And you can see very clearly we've got 41st gate, line 5, Pluto in personality, Pluto in design, line 2. Okay, so if we were to extrapolate that time, that imprint out into the future, that's why we have the Ides of February. Actually, it happens to be on my birthday in 2027. So the ability to have this shift of awareness, if we were to take a look at the human experiential way, that's the start codon in our genetics, the drive for us to make progress as human beings. So it's something that was profoundly part of the seven-centered process, the world of fate, fate being gate 30, or feelings, where my sun happens to shine. So the human experiential way being about the focused recognition of feelings and the transitoriness of feelings and experience, because that is where the human experiential way is. In one of the recordings, I recall, I can't remember where it is, if anybody out there recalls hearing Ra say the stop codon is 35, please let me know. I'd like to be able to cite that. At Jovian Archive, we're going to have an ability to search all of Ra's data soon, though. So I'm really excited about that. Very exciting. Okay, so back to our story. Discovery of Uranus. Here's the design. Pluto being in the initiating codon, or the start process of our experiential development as a human being, to have this vast Plutonic cycle. I think it's 412 years. Okay, so as an example, each one of us, we maybe live decades. Lucky if we live to be a centurion. Not everybody does, though. 84 years, I'm pretty sure. Is it 81 or 84? One of those two, where we are designed to live healthfully in these bodies. Are we doing that? Not necessarily, not many. Most people are decaying after their, 50s, 60s. They start to decay or degrade. And that's not what we're designed for. We're designed to be healthful into our 80s. So that's the longevity portion and primary health system portion, if you want to study that kind of stuff. Okay, so discovery of Uranus was 41.2 and 5. That was in 1781. Okay, so there was a reason for me bringing that up, because take a look. Here's Pluto. She Grandma Pluto went all the way around the wheel, and look, 2027, Ides of February, when we are going to have a complete cycle later, where Pluto will be in the line 5, and that means line 2 as well on the unconscious side. So it's really magical to be able to see Pluto as an instrument. Remember, we call it truth, transformation, and it's psychology on the personality side. It's the inhalation of air into your life, into your breathing, literally. Inhale on the body side, the physiological imprint. So as we move closer and closer to that date in 2027, every single step is bringing a deep finality to this current, not only the era, the industrialized age. And Ra would say also it ends the era of innovation. I find that really fascinating and hard to comprehend, quite frankly. But in one of his materials somewhere, he says that after 2027, there isn't going to be this continual evolutionary or expansion of our technologies even. So something to see. Wait and watch. We'll see. Now, let's take a look at the electromagnetic designs between Uranus and Discovery and the Ides of February. If we were to keynote all of this together as one thing, you can see we have the channel of struggle, design of stubbornness, channel of mating, a design focused on reproduction, channel of inspiration, design of a creative role model. And so if we were to keynote this time frame, this era of innovation, we could see the struggle to create a new model. So the entire period from the discovery, 1781, to the Ides of February 2027 is the struggle to create a new model. The struggle to create because it has to be created, yeah? Relative to the fecundity of the human species. It's up to our generators, really, because they are the ones that are designed to reproduce. The rest of us can be conditioned to reproduce, doesn't mean that it's wrong, just that these mutations arriving as we wait for the possibility of this new model to come through, it is difficult. We are in what I would call a squeeze time, where there's a lot of energy being forced through us to attempt to create struggle, to create a new model, while at the same time, we are dealing with the hangover of the seven-centered era, the mental thing, and then also the fear of the unknown and the uncertainty. I recently watched a very respected Western astrologer give a transit report, and he was calling it the age or the era of uncertainty right now, because of the dramatic shifts and challenges that we're all facing. So if you look at this slide, you can see here's the amount of humans on this planet during this Plutonic Interregnum. So there's 1781, the discovery of Uranus, end of World War II, 1945, and then we had all of the baby boom stuff happening. And so you can see 8 billion. We went from, that looks about 2 billion to 3 billion at the rise of that graph, and now it's 8. We need a lot of human beings to be able to have the diversity of the gene pool birth something unique out of us. So, quote, Ra says, this is a deeply, deeply reproductive process. Pump out as many as possible so that the chance of mutation may be there, that human explosion. The amount of human beings born since the end of the Second World War, the population of this planet for most of its history, so deeply fertile and not to the benefit of individual humanity. We are here not by our will, but to be of service to the process of the evolution of consciousness. No choice, end quote. When we say no choice in human design, I once was very confused by this because, before human design, very much into the mental machinations. I don't want to offend anybody, but sorry if this is you, of, the think therefore I am crowd. The intentionality of controlling your reality and manipulating falsely with more Maya games, really, trying to play the seven-centered construct rather than being in the embodiment. And in my design, it's about the ability to accept what is. What is this form. This is the tangible reality that I can see. Not that I don't have the ability to attune to things or frequencies beyond, relative to this human creature that we are embodied in, incarnate, in the flesh, carne, the flesh. We also have stuff that we cannot necessarily attune to. Some of us are born with cognitive potentials now, the right. Remember at the beginning we were saying the left, very strategic, very, what can we see, smell, taste, take action on, be secure about or fearful of, be uncertain of, selective about. That's a very different model. Some of us are born now with a different kind of cognitive potential. And the rave babies are going to be something, the struggle to create the new model, something that we cannot even imagine or comprehend of what is to come. So that's what Pluto is bringing. And my recognition about who might be interested in this level of the knowledge, 2027, especially right now, as Pluto's moving into the 41st gate in April. If you are somebody who works with children or parents who have children or are going to have children, you probably want to know some of this stuff. Not that everybody's going to be born rave, but you can see that autism is on the rise. Autistics are the precursor to the mutation. And we're going to study the autive circuit in this class, okay? However, with whomever you take this class. Now, 2027, Homo sapiens in transitus, moving to the rave circuitry. On this, all of that developmental process that Pluto brought, all of it sacrificed for this transition. We no longer, as a species, are going to have the same kind of vital survival force driving our ability to find our place within the context of community or tribalism. That channel is breaking down. So the channel construct itself is not going to have a connection anymore in the new beings that are born after 2027. Rave or not all children are going to be rave babies. Rave babies are going to be, in some cases, exposed, as back in the day, you know, if a person doesn't have the ability to take care of such child. In our modern day and developed countries where we have the capacity to take care of these children, they're probably going to be institutionalized, but they are designed to be very different than what us as individual creatures are designed to experience and express. The individuality of a rave will not be experienced as an individual. It will be in their own Penta pods. If you don't know the word Penta, it's a group of 3 to 5 people. 3 to 5 people. They will operate in conscious pentas, whereas we Homo sapiens in transitus operate in unconscious penta. Penta is a transauric form as far as it controls the group of those 3 to 5 people. It's morphous, it changes, it flexes, it grows and expands to become Wa when we have 3 penta, along with 1 person, 10 or more people, to start to create the Wa mechanics, OC16, organizing channels of a group of 16 people. That is transauric as well. Okay, so now we're back at the slide of why PHS, primary health system, is so important. ihdschool.com/professionals. Look for somebody who is a differentiation degree practitioner, primary health system practitioner. The person who can help you too is anybody that is in your field that may be studying this, if it's right for you to work with a student. So again, why is it so important? It's important because it brings your body, your vehicle, to the perfect well-being. It helps with your brain-body system, Sun, Earth. Okay, this is the control panel for your primary health system. And it also helps with your longevity, nodal environmental frequency. Primary health system should be experimented with as long as it's correct for you according to your decision-making strategy. So strategy and authority through our acuteness of the differentiation of our sensory capacity, our unique cognitive difference, not only from how we take in life, but also how we are nourished from the outside of us. So strategy and authority to help us have the decision-making capacity to allow our bodies to function correctly without the need to be reliant on outside forces. So it's basically like being your own diagnostic rather than going and trusting anybody outside of you to tell you what to do, to tell you what to feel, to tell you what to think, to tell you how to behave, to tell you what drugs to take. You are your own authority. Disclaimer, please consult a doctor if you are having any kind of serious issues according to your strategy and authority, okay? I'm not the boss of you. I'm not your authority. I just happen to know human design. And from the perspective, Ra says humankind, quote, needs to be given the tools that will allow it to survive with grace, with awareness, in correctness in the future. Human design is for the future, for our children. Us, he would call a pain in the neck because it's hard to decondition an adult, you know? But from the perspective of being able to attune to this new era, this new age, it's not too late. It's never too late to get right with you, to attune to your unique, inherent, sovereign nature. So when 2027 comes, there's going to be several things that we have to deal with. Our own possibilities of being able to close the door of our past era, to let go of those things that no longer work in the new era. You already see that happening in business. Have you noticed, relative to, if you study business, I know I do, or the ability to earn a living independently on your own through the internet now that we have this technology? A lot of things aren't working anymore. You have to change with the times, morph, shift, evolve with the times. And they're moving faster and faster, and everybody's trying to keep up. And if you are not aligning with self, what happens is you get caught in that trying to keep up, trying to do everything all by yourself, trying to do, if it's to be, it's up to me, says the mind, in the new era that is already being felt. The vibrational effects of feeling that pressure, being in that field, because we are just a couple years before the shift. So at the same time, our responsibility, says Ra, to an altruistic sacrifice in which we nurture the emergence of those that are intended to replace us, the Raves. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. There are still going to be people born that are not Raves, but with this new construct of that channel, 39, or sorry, not 3955, it's the 1949. 1949, broken. It will not be something that the human species has access to any longer. No drive, as we have over here, drive for communal living, bonding. No drive for the marriage contract, the education. Have you noticed how many people are now like, no, I can learn everything I need to know online? Look at the Ivy League schools that have free classes out there for anybody to take, you know, people moving with the times. So to be able to attune to this shift and to get through it, the end of this age of innovation, as Ra is calling it, we have to trust ourselves. He wants to close this with, he says, thinking 200 or 300 years of now, in the history as it was, that this will be a very special epoch, this age of innovation, where so many new, innovative, incredible discoveries and technologies are part of what we are currently experiencing still to this day and encountering. Now, in 1930, Pluto emerged into our consciousness, right? But now it's moving forward into an era that we have no idea what it's going to be like when it comes, and what it's going to change, and what it's going to shift. So Pluto was demoted, literally, by the society as, no, it's just a dwarf planet. We still maintain that it creates a definition in a channel when met up by the other side through another of the inner or outer planets, or if you don't want to call them planets, these shadow planets, they call it in Vedic. Ra would say Rahu and Ketu in his teachings. So I like to do the same to respect the Vedic knowledge. And he says he thinks it's quite extraordinary that this really is the end of something very profound, that the door has closed. And it closed on the sleeping phoenix. It closed with the sun in the 59 and the earth in the 55. So this age of innovation, again, discovery of Pluto, 1930, demotion, 2006, this age of innovation, what is it? If we were to keynote those two, if you look at the complexity of the electromagnetics, there are many here. Let's break them down. The channel of discovery, a design of succeeding where others fail, or failing where others succeed. Channel of maturation, a design of balanced and cyclical development. Channel of acceptance, design of an organizational being. Channel of transitoriness, design of a jack of all trades. Channel of synthesis, a design of being sensitive. So if we were to keynote all of these together, it might show up like to succeed or fail in a cycle of organizing transitory synthesis. The new experience supported by the logical discoveries of our era or our time, however it is that you want to keynote that. So at the very core of this age, you could put 1987, because basically here is where, in other words, we have the ability to have human design come into the fore, because human design is a synthesis of many different ancient and modern, both esoteric and exoteric ways of understanding life, reality. The software is called Maya mechanics, because quite literally, it is the mechanics of the Maya. And each one of us, an aspect of Maya, this incredible synthesis, which is this and that from every tradition or point of view. Somehow it's put into the synthetic construct. And that's why I love studying human design, amongst the things that I'm so passionate about learning and then passing on to you. So if we look at all innovation, true innovation has been the byproduct of what we have learned as synthesis, that 1949, design of being sensitive, synthesizing information. And something about 2027 that Ra teaches, he says, this emergence of the rave and the mutation itself. We're going to look at it clearly in the weeks to come, that this fatal dysfunction of this channel is going to lead to a whole lot of changes 2027 and beyond. It's already, you can start to see that with people not being able to digest meat. One of the things, the rave babies won't even be drawn to it as food. It will not be part of their ingestion. So here's a tip. If anybody out there ever comes across a rave baby in the future, don't force it to eat meat, because it's not going to be food to them, okay? It's no longer going to work, this channel of synthesis, that design of being sensitive. The 19 is the ability to take care of and raise, in that animal contract, the meat. The 49 is the slaughtering of the meat. So relative to us as a human species, you can already see people moving towards that, less and less people eating red meat in this day and age. So this is an incredible time, Ra says. Wouldn't you agree that this time is something to see, as far as not just standing in this doorway and crossing through the time threshold, none of us can escape it, and moving into a new era, but also there's a line in the sand, he calls it, that we cannot ever come back from. If you want to know your way of connecting up to this current transitional shift, you're going to want to look at your Pluto, okay? So your Pluto in your chart is going to show you a place for you to connect to this transformation. Pluto being the instrument of transformation. It's going through an area of the wheel where it's about death and rebirth, mutation and transformation. Death is just the final transformation in this human creature or construct. And now we can see it specially. Those of us who are here now, if you're here and now, thank you for being here. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to impart to you this beautiful system, knowledge, and language as another instrument of the message of this time. Ra says, those of us in this form, in this time, who have the fractal have the most extraordinary privilege of all. It is to be able to finally and simply be in the experience of life, to be free of the pressure of fear and survival, the lack of love, pain. It is beauty that is there for everyone, that fruit now. And there is no other answer. There is only the correctness of our form. And it's the only thing that can carry us into the future. So my great appreciation for you and your dedication to your studies and to this knowledge, to your own experiment. You're the only one that can dedicate yourself to your experiment. And if you want to learn more, you can attend any Rave Cosmology teacher program. This particular one was the first class of 2027 semester where we're closing the door on the nine-centered being. And this is going to be a quick keynoting exercise, okay? So for those of you especially who are my students, I've added this in relative to the old constructs will not support us as we move into the future. I'm paraphrasing from Ra's Rave History materials. It really struck me this morning when I was re-listening to it. And because of that, I went immediately and ran this new, who are the babies who are going to be born on April 12th with Fat Gate 41. Look and trust in the nature of the future, because everyone dies. It's just part of being in this finite form. We can't escape it. But you'll die the right death, the one that you can handle, the one that you came here for, a nice, clean leaving of the form. And we can pass it on to our children. And here's one of the children that are going to be born to organize and guide the initiation of perfecting the form into this new Maya. You can see channel of acceptance, design of an organizational being, channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first, channel of perfected form, a design of survival. And so this child is designed to be able to survive the changing, shocking coming times as an organizational being who can accept its particular destiny, because it's personal destiny. This is a 3-5 Maya worker, because this is a Maya guide, I should say. So to organize and guide the initiation of perfecting form into a new Maya.